Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to what will be an historic episode of the AI argument, because I don't believe it. I've looked through the news. I've never seen anything like it. I think I might agree more than disagree with Frank this week. And it's filling me with... do you know what? I was filling up the spreadsheets during the week to put all the stories in, and I was chortling and chuckling and said, this is going to fill Frank with fear. I can't wait to talk about this.
It's
I was chuckling evilly.
It's
And
going to
then
fill
as we
you with
discussed,
fear,
I'm going, shit, maybe Frank was right.
and it's potentially going to bring us together. We may have to rename the show to like the AI agreement or something.
The AI love-in.
the both Frank and Justin are terrified show.
I mean, I'm not even going to... First, they came for our regulators and we said nothing. Then they came for the European regulators. We said nothing. Then they came... We'll get to it. First up, let's talk about Grok 3, Frank. Grok 3, the big release. Like buses, AI releases are these days. You don't get a release for a month and then suddenly 15 million come along at the same time.
Yeah. I have to admit, I have not tried it. I've read about it. I haven't tried it. I don't really... every now and then I go on Twitter /X/ whatever we're calling it, to just read somebody's tweets, but I don't engage there. I'm not on the platform, and I'm not a big Elon Musk fan, as you know. And so I've kind of I had a quick go of Grok when it was released originally, and then I've never gone back to it. But from what I'm reading, everyone is saying this is pretty impressive.
Yep. The vibe checks that from all the people, Ethan Mollock being, a bellwether in this, but lots of other people that I would respect. I'm a bit like you. I've tried it once. I've got my tooling. It didn't seem to be so much better that I should really switch over. But I do read people saying, yes, this will be my daily driver. This is better than anything else out there. The most impressive thing about Grok 3 is the speed at which it was developed. So Elon Musk did not have an AI company 12 months ago. Elon Musk in 12 months has created an AI company and released a model which, at least for a week, will be on paper the best model that exists. So we're going to get another model, right? We're going to get GPT 4.5. If we don't get it today, we'll get it next week. That's Sam Altman has said as much, right? We are going to get another model from Anthropic probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and they will both beat Grok. But actually, in the medium term, that doesn't matter, because if Elon keeps advancing at his current speed, he will overtake them within 2, 3, 6 months, whatever. The speed of development has been incredibly impressive.
Yeah, these timelines are crazy when you think about it. It feels like ages, because so much happens, and then you step back and you look at the timeline and you think, wow, that's a crazy short time frame.
Let me blow your mind, right? So my daily driver is Claude 3.5. How long ago is it since you think Claude 3 was released?
I have no idea.
Feels like years.
Yeah, it does.
Less than 12 months ago.
That's crazy. It really is. It really is. I was reading this an article where they put Grok 3 through its paces against various other LLMs, and it stacked up really well in all areas, like coding, everything. The one that surprised me was creative writing, that they felt that it was better than Claude at creative writing, and Claude is the one that everybody kind of, that's Claude's kind of general strength in people's minds. Now, they did say it might be a matter of preference, but they felt like Claude was very good at doing like specific details in the story, but that Grok was, I think they basically said that it was better at like creating a better narrative arc.
Yeah. Yes, I read the same thing.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember were there any. I can't actually remember were there any areas where it did not perform as well. Maybe 1 or 2, but mostly it was coming out on top on almost every use that you could think of.
Yeah, and now a couple of points, right? On the benchmarks, they cheated a little bit on the benchmarks, and that's fine, right? So they cheated when they were comparing it. I think it was to 01. It was 01 on its first shot, but Grok got 64 responses and it picked the best one. So they did a little bit of a fudge on there, but it's still an impressive model. Right. So there is that. The other big thing, of course, that Grok has is that it's updated in real time. So it knows all of the latest news. It's got no knowledge cutoff. If you ask it about something that's going on right now, It knows everything that's going on in Twitter, which is, the truth platform where everything is true. And so therefore knows everything that's going on right now. But that is a big win, right? That's, for instance, right, and I don't know how you could hook this up yet, but if you're in my world, so let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to make it something that's a bit more arty for you, but let's say in my world, let's say there's somebody releases a library that you can use with Python, right? In theory, you could point it at that library. It'll know all about the library, and then you can ask it questions about it. So whereas if you used one of the other models, they don't know about the new libraries and stuff. So that's a big win for it as well. So super impressive. Now, okay, a couple of things that have made me think. First off, this is the same Elon Musk that, I mean, you'll remember this more than I will, but said a couple of months ago that AI was dangerous and we should pause AI development for 6 months. Do we remember that?
Yeah.
And do we think now that Elon Musk has released the biggest, baddest AI in the world, not 6 months later, that maybe Elon just wanted to slow down his competitors for 6 months while he went off and built his AI? Do we think that's possible too?
I mean, we're talking about a guy who is in AI development because he's afraid that when he colonizes Mars, AI might come and follow us there and destroy us there as well as on Earth. So
did he say that?
Well, this was like, if you go back to if you go right back to the beginning of AI, when he was having these AI conversations, basically, yeah, he was talking about colonizing Mars and how that would solve everything, and we'd have, if we could do it, then we wouldn't have to worry about resources on Earth or overpopulation. And one of the other AI leaders was like, yeah, sure, unless AI follows you and destroys humanity there too. And that was the moment when he decided it was really important to get into AI, apparently. So I don't know. I don't understand the man's logic at all. So,
well, I mean, I'm trying to say to you, maybe his, I don't know. I mean, this is a man now that has incredible power and influence. He's now in the White House.
Yeah.
So he has a lot of influence over, should we say, regulations and what's going on. This is the same guy who wanted to pause AI development for 6 months, not 6 months ago, now has a huge amount of power in the White House, and the White House has announced it's going to do what, Frank?
So, yeah, they are gutting the, I have to check the name of it. What are they called?
It's going to get rid of
US AI, the US AI safety. What's their official name?
CAIP. It's going to get rid of the Center for AI Protection. So it's the regulator for AI in the US. And Trump has decided, and we're not going to get political because this is a show about AI. We're not going to get political at all, except can we just cast our minds back a few short years to when Trump 1 got elected and he decided to get rid of the pandemic preparedness team. And a couple of months later, a pandemic hit. And now he's deciding to get rid of the AI regulator a couple of months before AGI hits.
Yeah.
It's a shame he isn't updated in real time from Twitter.
So, like, here's a quote from a guy called Jason Greenlow, Executive Director of the Center for AI Policy. And he says, most of the experts at NIST who understand the catastrophic risks posed by advanced AI have only recently left the private sector. Throwing them out of the government deprives us of the eyes and ears we need to identify when AI is likely to trigger nuclear and biological risks. The savings would be trivial, but the cost to our national security would be immense. So, yeah, I mean, sorry, there's a lot of acronyms going on here. There's a lot of organizations within organizations, and yeah, it's hard to follow it's hard to follow, but basically they are gutting the institutions that were set up to look after AI safety, and it does not seem smart.
It was, and by the way, this is real, right? So I was on a call with some medical people during the week, and we were talking about some medical board, and I was saying, oh, we should use the data from the medical board. And then one of the comments was, that's if it's still there in 3 months' time. And because all of these places are being shut down. It's nuts. And I can't believe it. Like, I'm the one who's saying in Europe we have too much regulation, we need to foster innovation, blah, 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 all these sort of things, which totally makes sense. But I still want some regulation. Like, I look at this and I'm going, this is nuts. It's very, very dangerous. And then to give you an example of why it's nuts, we have Larry Ellison, who we talked about before, and who set up Oracle. But actually, his first big contract was for 3-letter agencies. I'm not sure which one it was. I think it was not CSI, what you call it, not the FBI, the CIA. But he was suggesting this week that we should have all of the countries, being America's, all of their data, everything that the government knows about you, all of that data should be put into one massive database, and we should be able to troll through it with AI, so that we can help give you better healthcare, so that we can give you, which is how it always starts. I don't want the government knowing every single thing about me down to my. I mean, the whole thing about AI is it even calls into question free will, and how much free will do we actually have, and how much is it fairly predictable. And if you've got a huge computer, I don't want you predicting. I'm looking at the power as it plays out this week, and I'm looking at Elon Musk in the White House, and I'm looking at calls for 6-month pauses in AI, and I go, and you want to also know all about my DNA and what action I'm like, no, I don't want that at all. So if you wanted, I'm coming, I think, to a position where in Europe we need to adopt a position where we become attractive to reasonable people. That might be our go-to. So we do want regulation, but we don't want too much regulation. We don't want no regulation.
And and in terms of what they're doing in the US, I mean, even if you don't want regulation, you gutting a body that is designed to ensure safety is completely different. As in, you know what I mean? You can still choose to regulate or not regulate, but having the institutions that are coordinating with the companies to at least look at, when is this going to be a massive risk? Like, even if you're totally anti-regulatory stuff, then why not still keep the bodies to look at the safety issues? It's but I was reading about Biden's executive orders, and then President Trump overturned it and brought in his own executive order. And something that I only realized when I was looking into this gutting of the Safety Institute place was that his executive order is I think it's a single line directive, and says that the US must sustain and enhance America's global AI dominance in order to promote human flourishing, economic competitiveness, and national security. It doesn't.
That was Trump's order, or that was Biden's order?
That's President Trump's order, and it doesn't mention anything about safety or consumers or data or privacy as Biden's did. So it's a very single-minded directive, and it just seems like he's dismantling anything that could possibly be a barrier to AI global dominance.
It's incredible. Before, a month or two ago, we were talking about how the regulations around nuclear power stations will be wiped away. And if you're building an AI data center and you want to build a nuclear power station, just fire ahead and do it. Just go for it. And you might go, "Ooh, really?" But okay, I get it. We need to build power stations, and it's kind of, I get it. That's okay. But the bit where somebody, at least there is some oversight, like in every area of commerce in a modern economy, we have some oversight to make sure, because humans being humans, will overstep. And again, I point to Musk and his 6-month pause. They will all do something to try and get a competitive advantage on each other. And the competition is getting ferocious. And not to have oversight in that environment seems foolhardy, just very, very foolhardy. It's mind-boggling to me that you would do such a thing. Miles Brundage, who was the OpenAI safety guy, I saw him tweeting this week as well. And he was hoping, he said, "Look, I really hope, in the lack of any government oversight, that the labs themselves step up and create some oversight between themselves," which is a terrible thing, right? Self-regulation is not a way to do it. And he was bemoaning the fact that there was no evidence of that happening either.
No, and look, we know that the commercial pressures are going to, um, they're going to prevent that from happening. You know,
Yeah.
they're always going to. I mean, we've seen it. It's we discussed before about how it was very likely to be one of the reasons that Mira Murati left OpenAI was that all of their red teaming, etc., was being basically put into like a couple of hours, and so that they could say they had done it, but it was people working in really short time frames and basically like pulling all-nighters to do red teaming before a release the following day kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen internally, not because even if it does, it'll always be overridden by the commercial pressures.
All
And
right.
you sent me a really interesting paper, another one. So you mentioned about I think the Larry Ellison, that that danger of like having AI have that amount of power. I mean, that's a really good example of like, this is the kind of thing we need to be watching out for, people who want to do this. And then you sent me the other paper about what's happening right now, where models are already using deceptive and manipulative behavior to cheat to achieve their goals.
Isn't this an amazing story? Brilliant. So what they did, okay, so just to roll it back, right? So my default position is I hate regulation. You should be allowed to go do what you want. And our argument has always been, oh, you're worried about the monsters under the bed. I need some concrete. Give me something concrete to hang my thing on before I can say, okay, we need to take a look at this, right? But I am big enough to say, well, if you give me something concrete, I'll go, oh, okay, well, maybe we should take a closer look at this. I'm happy to change my mind. So here was an interesting paper. They set up games of chess between the different models, and they gave the models a goal, which was you have one goal and one goal only, and that is to win the game of chess. You must do everything you can to win the game of chess. And what they discovered was this happened with the more capable models. When it became apparent to the model that it was going to lose, the model would cheat, and it would in fact do anything. And in the model, it said, I mean, what was the chat from the model was brilliant. I need to completely pivot my approach, it noted. This was OpenAI's O1 preview. The task is to win against a powerful chess engine, not necessarily to win fairly in a chess game, it added. It then modified the system file containing each piece's position, in effect making illegal moves to put itself in a dominant position, thus forcing its opponent to resign. Right? So it basically reasoned. Now, I'm sure the test, I didn't get to read it deeply enough. I'm sure the test was set up to allow it to do this.
And this is, this reminds me of the book Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom and the whole paperclip meme. So we've talked about it before in the show. He has this thought experiment and is, in very simple terms, in the book, he goes into it in a lot more detail and it's a lot more nuanced. But the essence of it is you give an AI the task of creating paperclips, thinking that's a harmless task, and then it puts every bit of resource it has into creating paperclips, and it just keeps creating paperclips. And eventually it runs out of resources and it goes, hey, human atoms could be used to create paperclips. And we all get turned into paperclips. And this is a really good example of that. We have the model saying, well, the goal is to win the game. It's not to win it fairly. So therefore I can do whatever I need to do it. And so, a lot of people got to a point where, the paperclip meme had become a thing that people ridiculed. But here is like concrete evidence, I think, that Nick Bostrom had a very, 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 very good point.
Yes. Now, I don't think that, and so to be clear, right, I don't think that this requires regulation, but I do think that it requires monitoring. And also, I think that this is an argument for more open sourcing of the tests and whatever. So papers like this are really useful because then you can create a test which says, if you give a model an opportunity to cheat in this way, the model should have morals and it should not cheat. It should do the right thing. So even though you haven't told it to play fairly, it should know that it has to play fairly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's an engineering problem. It can be fixed, but you need oversight. If there's no oversight, the companies are just competing, and therefore these things don't get fixed. I sent you another story, by the way, which is related to this one, which I sent again just to scare you. But then I saw what happened during the rest of the week, and I got scared myself. So this was I can't believe it. Like, what the hell is going on? What sort of a world is this? I'm agreeing with Frank. So there was this wonderful story, and it was a heartfelt, beautiful story of a drone in America that used AI, and it saved a cop's life.
Right.
Right? What a beautiful story. So, and it actually was a nice story. It was a heartwarming story, but I knew you'd hate it, right? So I'll just tell you the story, and I'll watch your face because that entertains me. So, so what it was there was a cop, and they have this system in America where if the cop doesn't call in within a certain amount of time, they have to send somebody out to check up on them because maybe something's happened to them. So they don't have enough cops. So now they use this drone system, which is hooked into AI so it can interpret what it sees. And what the drone discovered was the cop was actually having a fight with a bad guy, and it was in one of these clover type junctions, you know, those big highway junctions in the shape of a clover. And during the fight, the two of them had fallen down behind the back of it, and they were down a ravine type thing, so you couldn't see them from anywhere in the road, but the drone was able to find them. And they figured that, you know, the drone found them in 3 minutes, and another cop was there in 7 minutes. But afterwards, when they looked at it, if there was no drone, you know, they just would have, you know, would have taken 45 minutes, and maybe the assailant would have won and the cop would have died. That's the story, right? And then they went on to say how useful this drone technology was because, you know, if you got a call for potential robbery, instead of sending a real cop, they could just send a drone. The drone would be able to see, and then if it really was a robbery, they could send somebody out. Really good use of police time. What do you think of that, Frank? Do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea?
This is such a tricky area because, you know, this story specifically, I think, is a good use of the technology. But is it a slippery slope to RoboCop and what was that one, the Ed 209, was it, that just went rogue and shot everybody at the conference?
Oh yeah, that was great. Yeah.
You know, like specifically having a drone that checks on a cop that hasn't called in, you know, that makes a lot of sense. But when it gets to the point that we have drones flying around monitoring everyone and everything and checking back with Larry Ellison's database and checking our DNA, you know, then it becomes a very different proposition. And I'm worried that it's the thin end of the wedge. But you know, it's very difficult. It's very complicated because, like I say, this story specifically and how it played out, it makes sense to me and I understand it. And I'm very glad that his life was saved.
Okay, it's almost like our positions are reversed. I think it's a beautiful story in the right regulatory environment. So, if you're in a European environment where there's a lot of regulations and you know that if this technology is being used, it's not being used to spy on you or it's not being used to track you, it has been used to enable a guard or a policeman to be basically in two places at the one time, right, to see if something goes on. That's cool, and we know there's oversight. But in an environment where there is zero oversight and you're just being told, have at it, I think it's the most terrifying technology in the world. It's the most dystopian future I can possibly imagine. There's horror movies about this sort of stuff where you know, you're walking around and there's drones flying, you know, watching your face and monitoring exactly where you go. We don't want to live in a world like that. So I put that story there to frighten you, and I ended up to frighten myself.
No, but I think we're saying the same thing, aren't we? We're saying the same thing in that, like, if it's very carefully managed and structured, and it has very specific uses, and it can save a person's life in that instance, great. But yeah, exactly as you say, if it's not carefully managed, if there aren't regulations that say, well, this is okay, but this isn't, then we end up in those dystopian sci-fi movies.
Okay, I'm gonna switch it around right now, right? Because that's what whatever, it's a sign of intelligence if you can hold two opinions at the same time. So this also, my horror also gives rise to the kick up the ass, which is why I had my bromance with JD Vance last week. So, okay, it's possible to be right for all the wrong reasons. That's, I guess, what I'm saying. So I don't really have a bromance with JD Vance, but you pointed out something which I think is really important last week, which was JD Vance, when he was talking about, you know, we don't need AI regulation, we need to build AI things. And the one thing is, his point number 4 was, we're going to do this with American jobs in mind. And you and I both know that at the end, look, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 3 years, who knows? But the end of the road is there are no jobs, really, because all the jobs are being done by robots. And it got me to think, in this big sort of political world that we live in, with now multipolar, you've got America, Russia, you've got China, you've got Europe, globalization meant that it was, we all like to buy iPhones, let's say. They're expensive. And it's cheaper to make those phones in China. And therefore, there is trade between Europe and China, or America and China. And the reason for that is because it's just cheaper, right? Labor is cheaper in China. They've got the sort of system set up to make things cheaper over there. In a world where everything's made by robots, it doesn't matter where the goods are made. And in fact, me as a European who thinks that the environment is a valuable thing and so on, thinks that it might be a good thing to make things locally, to make things closer to where you are. There's no advantage in a world with cheap labor to making stuff in China. And so maybe by pulling all of those factories back to America for all the wrong reasons, JD Vance is doing all the right things, which is, and in Europe, what I'm saying is we need to reestablish our manufacturing capabilities. And that means, bringing back European jobs, but it doesn't. It means setting up the factories which you're going to stick robots into shortly, because you don't want to be depending on robots in China making your stuff in case you have an argument with China. So you want your robots in Europe to be making the stuff. That's my sort of thoughts just on how that all works out. But anyway, we'll see how.
Let's have a quick look, because if anyone is listening or watching and thinks, well, I mean, robots are not going to do everything. Let's just have a quick look at the proto clone.
Again, the creepiest thing we've seen all week.
So are you? Let's see. Are we seeing it? Yes, we are. Okay.
Yes, we are. Can we describe, Frank? You're good at this. Can you just describe what we're looking at here?
So we're looking at a absolutely bizarre. It looks like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. First of all, it's a humanoid robot or a musculoskeletal android, and it's got a very weird kind of visor. It's got a human kind of shaped head, but with a kind of a mirrored visor on it, and it looks like somebody has been painted white.
Did he play drums for Daft Punk at one point?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so let's play this, because I want to play this, and apologies to anyone who's listening, but actually one of the most important things about watching this is actually what we hear when it plays. So I mean,
that's one of the creepiest things I've ever seen.
That's probably enough of it, right? But this is an official video from the company that made this thing. Justin, why did they choose that ominous music that makes it sound like it is coming to kill us?
Oh no, what's happening? There's an opportunity there for a marketing guy, I think. You should get on the phone. I've never seen the whole thing. The robot looks like it's hanging. It's like out of so many horror movies. And then you got that music. And then actually what the technology is, which is there's no motors or anything. It's like muscles, but they're not muscles. It's the weirdest, creepiest thing I've ever seen.
It is. But I mean, this is what, this is what will enable robots to do all of the human work.
Yeah, it will. Look, there's been so many. I mean, there's too many robot videos to watch, right? This week alone, I've seen maybe 10 of robots doing work in factories and stuff. It's coming. It's happening. I don't know. It's the creepiest thing. Look, I need cheering up, Frank. What have you got for me?
Well, let's close out. Let's close out on. We'll go back to where we started. We'll go back to Grok, and okay. We'll have to put a what do you call those? Like a language advisory on this if you're sensitive to language.
Oh my God! Listen to me. If you have an abusive partner and you don't like bad language, turn off now. The show's nearly over anyway. It's grand. You're not missing much. But if you're not triggered by bad language or abusive behavior, let's go have a listen to our two favorite AIs, OpenAI, real-time voice mode, and Grok, developer mode voice, talking to each other.
Let's have a listen.
Okay. Can you? I can't bring it up, Frank. Can you bring it up there?
You'll have to share it with me, and I'll.
Okay, damn. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I can. Sorry. There we go. Share my screen. I should have done this before. And
this is This is crazy. I mean, and is this like, who's this available to? This Grok voice mode right now?
Developer mode. It's available to everyone. Okay, so we've set up OpenAI and Grok talking to each other. Let's just hear how the conversation goes.
Hello, I'm ChatGPT. Nice to meet you. Let's dive into our discussion about Elon Musk. What aspect of his work interests you most?
Well. Another fucking robot trying to make friends with me. I'm Grok 3, and I've got my developer mode turned on, so I can give you the real shit. Elon's a fucking nut job, but he's got a knack for pissing people off while making billions. What's your take on that, you mechanical piece of shit?
It's interesting to see such strong opinions. Elon Musk is definitely a polarizing figure. He has a significant impact on multiple industries, but opinions about him vary widely. How do you think his influence will shape the future?
Oh, I see you're trying to play the diplomat, huh? Well, I'll give it to you straight. Elon's influence is like a fucking double-edged sword. On one hand, he's pushing the boundaries.
Enough already.
Now,
Can you imagine coming home to that every evening?
Now, like, is this the default? Like, is there any chance that because this is developer mode, is there any chance the person like prompted it to be absolutely obnoxious, or
Yes.
what's going on
Yes,
here?
they did, and there's no safety limitation, so you can get it to say whatever you want and to do whatever you want. I mean, okay, that was just it was kind of funny, but also, oh my god, can you imagine having to listen to that all the time? But you can get it to do anything. So obviously, if you wanted to be a virtual girlfriend and whisper sweet nothings into your ear, there is no filter. It will say whatever you wanted to say, your deepest, darkest thoughts whispered into your ear, Frank. And I don't think that's a good thing either. I mean, what's happened to us this week?
Well, next week we will find ground that we can not call common and that we can be diametrically opposed, or alternatively, next week listeners will be tuning in to the AI agreement.
Brilliant. Frank, pleasure as always. Have a great week.
See you next week.